Hello and welcome to Lab Coats and Yoga Mats, the podcast where we explore fresh ideas and perspectives on big topics of our time through a blend of evidence-based rigour, holistic thinking and human stories. I'm your host, Dr. Lily, and join me through a series of solo episodes and guest interviews as we get thinking outside the box, challenging outdated paradigms and having fun along the way. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lab Coats and Yoga Mats. Today's episode is building on last week's solo deep dive, which was titled, Am I making this decision or is an algorithm making it for me? And in that episode, I was sharing insights from my professional experiences working as somebody in AI risk, as well as my past work in developing digital products, so specifically AI therapy tools. I also reflected on my personal relationship with social media and how it's evolved, some of the tools I've found helpful for managing it. And so it's very also action oriented as always. I love an action. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, then I would recommend checking it out either before this or after you've listened to this one to just have a little bit more context for today's conversation. Today, though, I am super excited to be joined by my incredible colleague, Nana, who is a researcher, a lawyer, and just an all-round expert in general on all things digital rights and AI safety. We both work at an AI safety and governance company called SciDot, which she will reference in the chat. And she has also been an affiliate at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University for the past, I think, 4 years, exploring as part of a multidisciplinary group of researchers how the internet and social media shape our lives. And so her research and her passions tackle big issues like privacy, online safety, and digital rights, which are topics that are increasingly relevant as our lives become more and more entwined with digital platforms. We literally cannot get away from these things. And so it's super important that we have people like Nana out there in the world doing this really important work. So this episode is going to dive deep into the complexities behind social media and what it means to basically govern the internet, like make rules around what you can and can't show to people. It's so easy, and I get frustrated myself by things like shadow banning or just seemingly obscure algorithms that drive our feeds, and the fact that algorithms can literally shape our views of the world based on what they want to promote. But Nana in this conversation brings such a nuanced perspective, and she shares that same concern as me, but she's also really highlighting why these topics are not black and white and why we can't just like switch off all moderation filters or design our own algorithms entirely. Like there are problems with that as well. And so it's often with so many of these things about finding a balance. And she shares it in such an accessible way, I think, that this topic can feel quite overwhelming, definitely at first. But the way that Nana talks about it so passionately and with so much clarity is, super refreshing and an eye-opening. And as always, we will discuss practical steps that we can take as individuals to navigate this digital landscape. So the first half of the conversation will be some context. I think it is really worth listening to that part. And then the second half, we're going to be diving much more into practical steps. And Lana shares some super valuable insights for basically how we can foster a more human-oriented online experience. And super refreshing, super thought-provoking. And when I listened and edited this episode, it made me just want to get out there, get outside, do some human things. I went actually to a community dance, which I wasn't going to go to otherwise, just literally after having listened to this conversation. So really worth a listen. As always, if you enjoy, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Also always love to hear feedback and any reflections you've had or any changes maybe that you've made. If you're curious about the digital world and how it's impacting us and the complexities of what's really going on behind the scenes and what we can do about it as well, then let's jump in. Hi, Nana, and welcome to Lab Coats and Yoga Mats. I was wondering if we could kick things off by you maybe sharing a bit about your story and what has brought you to where you are today.
I'm a lawyer, and I'm a very curious lawyer. Sometimes I don't call myself a lawyer, but where necessary, I describe myself as a lawyer. Um, I have a very curious mind. I've been involved in different things, and I've worked in different places. I've worked in government, I've worked in nonprofits, I've worked in the private sector, I've run my own business. I've actually taught in schools. I've been a lecturer. I don't see limits, right? But at the core of everything that I do, at the core of everything that I am, is well-being, well-being for humankind, right? And at that core is also the fact that I'm always looking at emerging technologies. What does it do for humans? Does it contribute to our well-being? Is it ethical? Is it trying to erase humans, or does it support humans to achieve well-being? And that support does not necessarily mean mental health. It means that, can I use technology to improve the speed of the work that I do? If that happens, then I have more time to do other things. There is all of that, those parts. Um, a little bit of a beeline to where I am today. I went to Harvard in 2013, if I remember correctly. My dates may be wrong, but circa 2013 for the first time. I was taking a course there at that time, and one of my mentors, who I really appreciate, took me to the Beckman Klein Center for Internet and Society, and we had coffee there, and we attended a talk there. Then he was running a PhD program at Harvard, and it was very interesting. So we spent all day talking to Uwas Gasa, and interestingly, I had read his book Born Digital. I remember that book because it shaped a lot about my thinking around these things. So I had read his book Born Digital, and we were discussing his book, and then he says, "Why not come to the center?" And that was how I got introduced to the Beckman Klein Center for Internet and Society. And I applied to become an affiliate in 2019, just before the pandemic. During the pandemic, I got accepted, and since then, I've been an affiliate of the center. Um, and that was where I met Sidot. I met Mary with the amazing work that she was doing with her team. We did a lot of work together, and well, how do they say it? Things work out for the best, and here I am, right? Um, so this is a short summary. Like, I've kind of performed some surgery and removed a lot of parts, but yeah, this is me creating that beeline to today. So yeah.
I love that. I feel like every time we speak, I learn about a new industry and a new career that you've had. Like you
Oh,
have, I love how the common thread between everything is this
oh.
fully on the well-being of humanity. It's really, really cool. And I feel there are so many things that we could dive into today. But the focus of this conversation, and also a big part of your career, has been focused on technology and social impact, right?
Yeah.
And in my recent podcast episode, I was exploring the concept of autonomy and how our personal autonomy is affected by social media algorithms, which are essentially engineered to maximize like our attention and to subtly manipulate us into consuming more and more content because they want to make more and more profit. And I really want to dive deeper into this idea, because I think it's not necessarily that it's not just that we're at the mercy of these algorithms, right? It's that our entire online experience
Mhm.
is shaped by the agendas of social media companies and what they want to push. So like the content that we see or the content that we don't see is curated, I think, in ways that often are serving like their interests rather than what's necessarily in our best interests. And I think so shadow banning is a good example of this. And I've got
Mhm.
quite a few friends who work in like sex education or
Mhm.
people in women's body empowerment kind of industries, photography industries, for example, and
Mhm.
they're often finding their content being suppressed or hidden.
Mhm.
I also recently came across like reports of content that's critiquing how like, Instagram and I think actually Facebook and Meta are quietly like pushing content that's critiquing social media's impact on teenagers out of view. So they're essentially hiding things that are moderating certain types of content. And for example, if I push a reel on my Instagram and I start calling out like the profit motives of these platforms and saying people should maybe spend a bit less time on their phones, it's probably going to get shadow banned and it's not going to gain very much traction. It's definitely not going to go viral because it's not aligning with their incentives. So these are just examples, but I just feel like there are so many voices and perspectives that are systematically muted by these algorithms. And so our worldview when we're online is increasingly being filtered basically through these different priorities and incentives of these large algorithms and companies. I don't know what your thoughts on that are. Like, how can we make sure that social media is showing us what's actually aligned with our values, not just what makes social media companies money? And I don't know, is that even possible?
I don't think that's possible, Lily. I don't think
Yeah.
that's possible. I like to look at things from a realistic perspective, right? Social media companies are for-profit companies.
Mm-hmm.
Their primary their primary business is to make money, is to be profitable. And that profit goes to their investors, people who have put in money. And social media companies conduct research. They do they put a huge amount of money into research in academia, in individual research, in organizational research. The whole point of all of this research is not altruism. The whole point of the research is how are we compliant with regulations, with laws, while still making profit? How do we get people to like the product that we're selling to them and be able to break even? That's it, really. It is the job of governments, of people that we've elected, to make sure that these things are democratic. Do you see my point? So people, users, right, keep advocating for their right to see what they want to see. One, two, they're also advocating for their rights to have a broad view of the internet that is good. Do you see my point? And these two things are a little bit difficult because on the other side of the spectrum, extremists, social extremists, are also advocating for their right to be
Yeah.
extremists online. People are advocating for their rights to be abusive online. People are advocating for their rights to stalk people online. People are advocating for their rights to play discriminative politics online. So we can't lean heavily to one side. There has to be like some middle ground. And currently, the only thing that achieves this middle ground is one, regulation, two, self moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? And
So when you say self-moderation, do you mean giving users the autonomy to choose what's
what
being
they see.
moderated and what's not being moderated?
No, giving users the opportunity, maybe moderation might not be the right word, but
Mm-hmm.
giving users the opportunity to choose what they see.
Yeah.
I see that as a form of self-moderation. So if I choose not to see content that does not align with me, I mute it or I block it.
Yeah. And that is the thing at the moment, right? It's just we don't necessarily, as users, we don't have the opportunity to select what we do see. So that I don't think at any point we get the choice as to what our algorithm looks like. It just kind of happens for us, and all those filters are happening in the background. And occasionally, I think you can click if something doesn't feel good for you, but you can't necessarily choose what your algorithm actually looks like.
Yeah, and that's also like a problem because we're plagued every day by devices, digital intrusions into private life. And I kind of I roll my eyes when people say you can turn it off. No, you cannot turn it off. If you want to exist in today's world, you have to be digital, right? To a certain extent at least,
Yeah.
right? You people's phones collect information on them, computers collect information on them, smart homes collect information on them, and still people don't have the capacity to say, well, this is the algorithm I want, this is what I want to be learned about me.
Yeah.
You don't even have that choice, and then you're shown things that you don't want to see. Yes, I might have thought about this. Yes, I might have searched for this, but I certainly don't want to see it showing up on my feed. It was a one-time thing. But where do we draw the line, though? I
What do you think it would look like if we did have the choice to choose our own algorithms? Like, what would be the user experience?
It would be I would, as much as I would like it, because I personally favor echo chambers when I'm online and in a relaxed mode, and by that I mean social media like Twitter and so. But in reality, it's a bad idea to create echo chambers, right? I'm concerned that while it would afford us the possibility to not see people we don't want to see, or hear things we don't want to hear, we will be creating insane echo chambers. And
More so than we currently have, because I guess at the moment we have echo chambers, but they're just created by the algorithms rather than by us.
so
Because
so here's the thing, right? Because the algorithms, we don't select them. They
yeah,
still sneak in things that we don't want. Do you see my point?
yeah,
Things that are not aligned to us, because it's a machine selecting these things. You're not supporting. If we start to select them, we start adding the human factor to the algorithm. We start supporting the algorithms actively, right? It's no longer learning your patterns and picking from your patterns. You're actively supporting it. Then that's when the real echo chamber is created.
yeah,
If for instance, I have I have a Twitter account that's private, right? And the people I allow follow me are people I know personally on that account. So people I've met in person, people I've had conversations with, people I like. So they follow me. And it's sure to say, to a certain percentage, maybe like 95%, that my views will be aligned with these people's views.
hmm,
Occasionally, I see views that I disagree with. And when I feel like it's too much of it, like it's a strayed way too much from what I disagree with, I remove them from following me. Then I don't see their takes anymore. But recently, with the new leadership in Twitter, right? Um, which is now X. Oh my god, I swore never to call it X, but yeah. So with the new leadership at X, I have this tab that is suggested for you, right? I
yeah,
have I have this tab called For You tab. I hate it so much. I hate it so much because it is the most randomized thing, and it brings ideas, people, insane people that I don't know. I don't follow them. I'm not interested in them. And for me to stop seeing those things, for me to be able to curate my page properly, I would have to pay to use X, which I would not do. So the point is that sometimes in that For You tab, I see things that I wouldn't have seen if I was locked in my echo chamber.
yeah,
And even if I don't agree with the school of thought, it allows me interrogate what I think.
yeah. So there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons to
Yeah.
having an algorithmic choice. Then, because on one hand, from what I understand, obviously having that choice allows the autonomy to come back to the individual. It allows us to choose what we see rather than getting influenced by whatever the algorithm wants to promote. But then on the other hand, actually having the choice means that you're going to end up actually exposing yourself to even less perhaps diverse perspectives and end up creating really perhaps even more polarized echo chambers. So it's, how do you even strike a balance with that? Like, do you have any ideas for what could work?
Hmm. I feel like the process in the current social contract that we have with social media companies, right? Um, the process can be tweaked a little bit better. While I wouldn't say give me exclusive rights to control what algorithms I see, I would say give me the right to exclude.
Hmm.
Do you see? More than right of control, I would say right of exclusion. I want to be able to remove what I don't want the algorithms to read about me. I want to be able to select what information goes, just the same way we're able to select our cookies, right? Uh, I want to
Yeah.
be able to select what's removed from all of these things that you've learned about me.
And for that, I guess you need to know what they've learned about you too.
Yes, transparency is key,
And we
right?
don't have that.
That's
I
the
don't
thing
know.
that's the thing that's lacking in this social contract. There's a lack of transparency. And
Yeah.
that's the one I would always hammer on. There's a lack of transparency. I don't know what Google holds about me, for instance, right? I don't know what information X holds about me. I don't know what information Meta holds about me. I don't know what information Yahoo holds about me. Basically, all of the digital footprints I have, I should be able to have access to my digital footprint.
Is it all? Do you think is it all there? Like along the way, we've probably signed loads of terms and conditions and like agreed to different things, but in terms of actually having like a holistic picture around, they know all of this information on me that doesn't exist, or like have we signed it somewhere about what information they can
Well,
access, or is that
so
completely lost?
so so here's the thing, right? I always, as a lawyer, right, always wonder how social media companies get away with unfair contract terms.
Hmm.
In a regular everyday business, right? You go into Aldi, you go into Lidl, you go into any of your regular grocery stores, right? You shop, you get printed a receipt, and on that receipt you can see an immediate contract, right? You know how long you have to return it, whether you can return it or not. Do you
Yeah.
see? And if you buy an item, some of the items have, if this is not good, or if you don't like it, you can do the return this, or you we don't have that with social media companies. It might be somewhere buried in the 20-page document that they've shared with you. It might be in the very long list of terms and conditions. It's buried somewhere that first of all, people get crazy when they see the first time when Twitter was quite a little bit new, not very new, but a little bit new. People were shocked to see their photos being used to advertise Twitter, and I'm like, why are you shocked? Twitter owns it. The same thing with Meta. They own it. So we have somewhere along the line signed away our rights to certain things, right? And we can't recall that. And yet the courts do not think that this is unfair in some way. Here's also the kicker, right? What, in your opinion, what do you think is the possibility of me, just me, being financially buoyant to sue these social media companies?
They
People
have,
only succeed when there are class action suits.
yeah, they have so much control.
Exactly. And the fact that class action suits happen when something egregious has happened, right?
Yeah.
Not me suing them because I didn't read the 20 pages that they sent to me because it was too much for me to read. Or me saying that based on my mental health that day, I wasn't very clear enough when I clicked. Do you see the point? They bank on the fact that people are not going to do this. No, hardly anyone is going to take these things up.
Hmm.
So we kind of settle with, uh, let's what works for us right now. What more can we get in terms of transparency? How can we get transparency? And to be honest, this is why I feel like the work of civil society organizations in the tech space is very critical,
Yeah.
because they're the ones who spend their own form of research, red teaming, adversarial test. What do you call it? They are the ones who sit down and strain the system to find the breaking point of the fabric of the technology in a way that when we found this gap, we will figure out how to fix it for humanity's sake.
Yeah.
They're the ones who research for them. It's not about making more money, it's about the well being of humanity.
But unfortunately, that's quite a minority
It's quite
group.
a minority. And here's also the kicker: some of them are funded by social media companies because
Yeah.
they have to get money from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, oh man, it's all quite overwhelming, to be honest. I feel like the other thing is that the more advanced that these AI systems become, and the more advanced that algorithms can get, and the more data that they have, and the more things that we sign away,
Mhm.
the more sophisticated, I guess, it can all become. Do you think there's like a natural limit that will stop things getting so good, or maybe in fact a better way to phrase it is if there was no limit to what information people had on us,
Mhm.
what do you think they could do? Like, what could these algorithms actually achieve? Like, why is it so important that we need to watch out for this?
I think they can do anything, Lily. Because okay, here's the a little. Let me go to the dark side a little. If the algorithms had, if there was no limit to the information they had, and minimal regulation, there's going to be say I'm an addict, right?
Yeah,
And I'm at a low point, and I I don't have a digital addiction. What I have may be a drug addiction, right? So I'm still with my devices. I'm trying to detox from the drugs, but I'm searching. If the algorithm knows all of these things, even when I'm searching for how to detox, it would know that I'm an addict.
yeah,
Now, imagine where people are paying tons of money to advertise those addictive things. What do you think the algorithm will do? It will push those ads for me. It will
yeah,
push me to Telegram spaces.
yeah,
So it will keep things in your face. It will almost taunt you with it all the time.
yeah. I,
It's there's a dark side to things. Say for instance, someone is mentally unwell and is reflecting and searching for things that relate to how their mind feels at the moment. Again, it's important that we remember algorithms are not human. They don't feel, have no emotion, they can control. They're just mathematics. It's just
yeah,
a series of long strain of numbers that are making mathematical calculations to determine what's best shown to this person. Right? I would be seeing things that would maybe push me off the ledge. So
I,
it's critical that we look at the dark side while we also look at the good side. The good thing is that for researchers, it will make things easier to find because the algorithms may be more accurate as to what you're looking for. Because if I've done a long series of searches, if I have done a long series of videos that I've watched, maybe that would help and improve the algorithm when I'm searching for stuff. It becomes more precise, right? It becomes more tailored to my needs,
mhm,
and all of that. But even with that, there's also the risk of hyperdependency.
yeah,
There's like there's a good, a bad, and somewhere in the middle place to this. I think two things. One, people need to be aware that some of these things influence the choice of what they see. People need to be aware that there's a lack of transparency on how much information social media companies, technology companies, whoever it is, there's a lack of transparency in the amount of information they hold.
yeah,
Then, beyond the amount of information they hold, there's a lack of transparency on what type of information they hold about you. So, those things may, kind of make people pause and reflect when they're searching to know that, okay, maybe I can mix up my keywords to find things that are not specifically very tailored to me. Maybe I can, find a way to find opposing ideas, opposing theories, and all of that. Or, like my friend will always say, maybe they can just go outside and touch grass. You know?
If in doubt, it's
Yeah,
always the best thing to do.
yeah. Just go outside and
Go and touch the grass. Yeah. I just wanted to actually touch on one of the things you mentioned there when you were talking about addiction and how subtly manipulative these algorithms can be. I think a very real example of something that's very much already there is the diet industry, for example. So when I was struggling with an eating disorder and going through my recovery, like in theory, that's a picture that's like somewhere. I think that would be encoded in my information online, right, based on the
Mhm.
things I've been searching for and the types of things I interact with.
Mhm.
Yet, even when I was, so ill, I was still being bombarded with ads for like diet apps, and pictures of people on diets and like showing before and after photos and stuff. Even though it was somewhere within my online footprint was
Mhm.
this was the fact that I was struggling with an eating disorder. I was still being pushed to basically buy things, and ultimately when it comes to diets and weight loss and
Mhm.
everything, like that's such a profitable industry. It's something like I think $8 billion. I think I might be
Yeah.
wrong, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
such a
right.
profitable industry, so obviously that's what I'm going to be shown.
Mhm.
And yeah, even though that it knows that I'm in this dangerous place. So it's really interesting what you say there. And I think, yes, it's a risk for the future when these algorithms become even more sophisticated, but I think it's already here. I think that's the thing. So many of these risks are
Yep.
we're already exposed to, we're already being massively manipulated by the content that we're absorbing online.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Oh,
It is. It is. For instance, right? Okay, let me touch a little on this unfair contract terms that I was talking about, right? Um, it says if for instance someone dies, right, or someone is harmed, injured, right, and when using your product or while in your service, right, you can't say that you don't have liability. You don't, there's no liability to you. You can't exclude your liability, right?
yeah.
Now here's the thing, it's so clear to define injury when it's physical.
Hmm.
It's harder to define injury when it's digital. Like the example you gave,
Yeah.
if I'm
Wow.
recovering from something and that's all the algorithm shows to me, it's harmful. You're harming me.
Yeah.
You're literally harming me. If I give in to that addiction because of the things I have seen, you have caused actual harm.
Yeah.
So
It's
why?
actually wild.
Yeah, I think there's a case. I can be wrong, but this case was about in the gaming industry, right? Addiction. There's a study that shows direct connection in game addiction, and there was a kid that died because they were parched. They refused to drink. They were just drinking. What's this orange colored drink? Like this, like an energy drink for teenagers. So they refused to eat, they refused to drink water. They stayed in the room gaming and died.
Yeah.
The gaming company was held liable. Why? Does this not apply to these other forms of social contract? Most recent example, the recent uprisings, discriminations, and all of that happened. I think was that in Liverpool. There
Uh,
was like a handful of violence that happened against immigrants at some point, right?
yeah. Yeah. It was
And
Liverpool.
the police was picking people based on the tweets or the posts they made online, right? That directly incited the violence. Why are the platforms not liable? Section 230 that protects platforms in the US needs to be changed. But then, do we have that in the UK? There's like a lot of liability that's removed from platforms, from social media companies. The social media platforms are like, we don't have liability for whatever happens online. Sure. And your algorithms owned by the social media companies, right? They show me things that are harmful for me, and by virtue of me seeing all of those things or being directed towards those things, I take actions that further harm me. Then the social media companies come back and say, well, we're not liable for the things that happen to you. You're responsible for your behavior online.
Yeah.
It's, I don't think it's fair.
I feel like it's a really complex situation because it is social media and it's these algorithms. It's a new, like, we've never really found ourselves in this situation before. How do we even go about trying to fix this? This is so ingrained. This is so complex.
Transparency is the first step, right? Um, what people, individuals, users should have access to information that you hold about them, including what your algorithm holds about them. What information have you collected? Um, it, I should be able to determine how long I want you to hold. Your algorithms should hold that information, right? Um, there should be transparency on algorithm, the same way there is transparency in every other form of data.
Yeah. But I feel like it needs to be really obvious, right? Because, like, for the average user, you know, probably the vast majority of us just can't be bothered to go into this much detail. But if I was actually just shown every single day, like a representation of what they know about me and what's being tracked that made sense, I think that would make me feel quite differently about it. But, like, I can imagine even if there was an obligation to be transparent, it's probably going to be, like, hidden somewhere really hard to find, and it's going to be really unclear, and it's going to be in legal speak, and I won't know as a user what that actually means for me. So I feel like it's also about, like, how it's shared as well, because, yeah, like I said, it's all very well at being there, but if it's not accessible or understandable, then what's the point?
I mean, there are laws in the US that are trying to do this, but my concern is that they're only doing this in relation to AI. Do you
Yeah.
see? And that's also there's also the thing where um politicians make laws. I'm not sure how far they consult with sector specialists. I'm not sure how far they consult with experts in the drafting of legislations. There are laws, some passed, some still tabled in different states in the US, about algorithmic accountability, right? But algorithmic accountability it's being directly linked to high risk AI systems, and but that's not all. It's almost like it's the race to being very politically correct. But how about social media companies? I understand that they're most social media companies are investing heavily in artificial intelligence, as they rightly should, right? Which even makes it worse because Meta AI is integrated into my WhatsApp. I didn't ask for it. I haven't figured out how to turn it off. It's
No.
there. It's there. So it makes it even scarier, right? In terms of what algorithms are collecting, platforms are collecting in terms of algorithm farming. They're collecting information about you,
Yeah.
and you have no access to what information is collecting. You only there is no transparency. What are you using this information? How are you using it? There is no transparency. The information that we have transparency about is the data, the direct data, the one you give them. See, they tell you this is the data that we collect about you, your date, name, date of birth, residence, all of those things. They tell you that this is what they're collecting about you. What of the things I've searched for? How much of the things I've searched for do you have? How much of the conversations I've had on WhatsApp do you have access to? You know, why do I have certain ads on YouTube? How much of that information are you using in these in what's it called, in driving these ads my way?
Yeah.
We don't have access to that information. Even when they say you have data transparency, you have data transparency, you don't have algorithm transparency, and they're doing algorithm farming. The
Yeah.
data transparency you have is the data that you directly feed to them.
Oh gosh, yeah. They're learning about you as you go, and like you said, literally everything is tracked.
Yeah,
And there's only more, and they'll only get access probably to more of it as time goes on, and then the more they have, the more sophisticated things can become, and
yeah,
then the more we
yeah.
can get influenced. So, what I think something that I would love to hear your thoughts on are what are some actions that we can take as individuals to essentially, I don't know, protect ourselves a bit more, because this stuff, like you say, is so overwhelming. Like a lot of it's not there, it's not transparent. We might have to wait on certain regulation before any actual change occurs. But what can we do? What can we do in the meantime? Like how can we protect ourselves in a way that's not too overwhelming?
I think that again, protection is dependent on if a person feels like they are in danger. So people don't often protect themselves if they don't feel any sense of danger.
But then they don't. I think a big part of why I want to be having these conversations is because I don't think people actually realize how much these companies know and what is possible. They don't see it necessarily as danger, right?
I hope that some of these conversations help them realize that we don't go out and tell random strangers we've just met everything about ourselves, but we tell social media companies everything about ourselves just by using an app,
Yeah.
just by allowing an app on our phone, just by signing into a page and registering and creating an account and using your YouTube. They know everything about you, but we don't go out and tell strangers. I think that people will need to start looking at it that way. If I meet Nana today and she says hi to me, do I start with, oh, hi, my name is Nana. I went to school here, I went to school there, my brother is this, my sister is that, my mom's name is this. Do I go on and tell them, oh, meanwhile, last year I broke up with my boyfriend, next year I'm going to do that? Do we do that? No, we don't. We
Yeah.
don't. So if you think about it and think about this far removed devices, social media companies, whatever it is, however abstract you choose to see those things, I would say that it would help make us a bit more cautious and have you think through, right? Do I need another app? Do I need another account on a platform? Do I need to say this? Do I need to put this out there? Do I really want to, these companies knowing this about me? Is this, can I do this search in a hidden mode? What other tools can I use to protect myself? It becomes a more conscious effort when we're online, if you are aware of these things. And if you're aware and it's to your benefit, then you also know that, okay, then I have to create an account, I have to do this so that these algorithms would get to know more about what I'm doing so that it actually helps me achieve what I want to achieve. So it's a sense of knowing if, when, and how, if you're in danger, when you're in danger, how endangered you are. That would
Yeah.
help you, determine what course of action you want to take or how you want to approach your digital life.
I think that,
Secondly,
oh, sorry.
secondly, I would say that building communities, actual physical communities, right, help.
Yeah.
People share, overshare. People are online because they're lonely.
Mm.
We have less communities. We have people, kids are using YouTube. They're using all these fun apps. They're using all these educational apps because they're digital babysitters. They're not doing it because genuinely you believe as a parent that this is the best for them. You're doing it because you're all up in work. You're tied up in so many other things and you need a breather. There is no community to support you get that breather, and you hand them a tab or your phone so that you can get, you can breathe and continue to adult for them. So that's the thing. When people are online on Twitter all the time, on Facebook all the time, on any social media platform, whatever it is, all the time. When people are checking every ping they get from their phone, it's because they're not talking to people around them. They don't have anyone to talk to, or maybe they don't like the people around them that they have to talk to. So it's the lack of community that's driving a lot more people online.
Yeah.
Then the older generation, their kids are grown, moved away. They don't have people around them. They're stuck to Facebook groups. So it's the lack of physical community. So we're telling people
So true.
online everything because we don't have actual people that we're telling. And also, secondly, or rather, lastly, because this is like the third point, there is a validation that digital devices provide, because if I search even the most ridiculous things online, I'll find someone else who has thought about it.
Yeah.
So there is validation of your thoughts. It's non-judgmental. There is validation. So I can wake up today and say I hate yogurt, and there's 1 million people on earth who have put in that they hate yogurt. I can wake up today and say, "Oh my God, I love to chew plants," and then there is a gazillion people online who also like to chew rose plants. It's that need for validation. Besides, you find this community of people, and you're sharing the different things that you're doing that sound ridiculous. This is why criminals find digital, what's it called, the digital world easy, because
Yeah.
you will find whoever you want to find.
So how can you like mitigate that? Because obviously validation is something we all want.
You
Without
cannot,
going
you
online, what's the
you
alternative?
cannot. This
Yeah.
the point of these last two facts is that, one, the first of the second point I made being community, you can mitigate by increasing community, paying attention to community centers. We need more community centers. We need
Yeah.
more places where kids can actually play and have parents hang around and do work if they want to work. We need to reimagine the way that spaces, public spaces, are designed so that people can actually interact in person with each other, right?
Yeah.
Then, but the last point about validation, I'm not sure what you can do to a criminal who's looking for validation online. That's the point. The last batch of humans will exist. People who seek validation, we all do seek validation, whether
Yeah.
from family, from friends, or from strangers. We all seek validation, and validation they will find. We can only increase how we moderate, and the onus is on the platforms to moderate. We have
Yeah.
shifted the onus so heavily on the users. It's no longer, community moderation is good. I mean, we X tried the whole community notes thing where users provide, disprove, or prove a tweet that's
Oh.
controversial. But it's getting out of hand. So the onus is on businesses that actually set up these platforms to hire trust and safety experts, moderate the platforms.
Yeah. But it comes back to that whole question of what do you moderate?
Trust and safety experts will work with civil society organizations who work in this space. It's a
Yeah.
collaborative effort so
Yeah.
that we continue to build a whole portfolio of online risks and expand and contract the definitions based on how society evolves.
Yes. Oh, I love this. You have so many good thoughts. I was just thinking also back what you were saying about how we need community and the importance of that. Like, I was just thinking how even I don't know what it's like in Sweden where you are, but here in the UK, a lot of the time, like you'll be on a walk in the park at lunch and you'll walk past someone and it's just like eyes at the ground. People don't even make eye contact anymore.
No,
People are like
no,
too
they don't.
afraid of even saying hello. And that's just it's just so sad. Uh,
Um, my daughter, my young child, she's going to be 8 in a bit, and she enjoys saying hello to everyone. And I will ask her, why
oh,
do you say hello? They don't say hello back. You don't know these people. And she said, well, I like to say hello to anybody. And
oh,
I would, after telling her don't bother, I decided, you know what? She has the right idea, right?
Yeah.
So when I go on my walks now, I just say hello. Sometimes they say it back, sometimes they don't. Sometimes someone stops and chats, and you realize people are genuinely lonely.
Yeah.
Because, and there's also that unspoken rule of I don't want to bother them, but I want to be bothered. Talk to me.
Yeah, definitely. So, so true. I feel like we're going to have to wrap up because we could just talk
Yes,
forever and
please.
ever and ever. But I just, to close, would love to ask you if you had everybody's attention just for a moment, what is one thing you'd want everybody to know?
I want them to go outside and touch grass.
Yeah.
Go outside.
I'm going to go do that right after this and say hello to someone in the park.
Yeah, I know, right? Go outside, talk to people, do human things, do non-digital stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your insights. And yes, very, very interesting topic and area, and just so important that we bring awareness to this space, I think.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I was just listening to that episode as part of my editing, and I thought I would just come on and share some final reflections at the end, because I feel like I took away so much from that episode. And I think firstly, one of the big realizations for me was that the whole way in which we moderate and design algorithms is complicated, and it's definitely not black and white. And what I thought was really interesting is what Nana was saying around how, too much freedom of choice around what your algorithm looks like and what content is shown to you and what is hidden could actually have negative consequences, could have more polarization. Whereas at the same time, too little autonomy on the individual to choose what the algorithm looks like and to be aware of what's going on. That also has its downsides. That means that we're suddenly handing over all of the control to the algorithms. And so really, I think what she was sharing and what was such an important message for me is that we need governments and we need laws to think about these things, to define these problems and to build in regulation, because without it, like the incentives of the social media companies profit, without regulations for them to work around, then they can kind of do what they want. And actually building in laws and regulations helps find that middle ground and that balance that we need. But like AI, the regulation is so slow, especially when there's super fast moving technologies, which I mean is a whole other conversation. But I think it's just super important that in that case, while these things aren't in place necessarily to protect us and they're not always going to get it right, we need to be extra aware as individuals about what we're consuming and what's actually happening behind the scenes. Another big point from that conversation that I thought really landed with me was around like data privacy and around, we really do not know what these companies know about us. And I was thinking, like, if they could just show us when you logged into social media that, they've been tracking how long we've been scrolling and what we've clicked on, and that we're maybe moving house and we've got a friend coming around and that's a very specific friend and they like this kind of thing. And so if we could actually see that information and then see how they're using that to then tailor our online experience, I feel like might feel a little bit differently about it. I think that because it's such a subconscious thing, it's much easier to just shortcut and not think about it. But if it was actually exposed to us in our faces, I feel like it would be a lot. And actually what I did is after this conversation, I logged into my chat GPT, and at least on the new model, you can see everything that the model knows about you. And it knew so much detail about me that it was weaving through the conversations. So it was saying like, it knew that I like green decor and that I have a partner called Hamish, and that like just all these things that maybe I'd put in through conversations. And it was super specific. I mean, those are just some examples. It was super specific about what it knew. I deleted them all from its memory, but it does still have that information. Like that's stuff I've chosen to give to it. And it has that now. And who knows, that we're giving all that kind of thing to all these platforms. And there is literally zero transparency about what it is that they actually know. And I think maybe that is just something that we're going to have to get used to, because we can't really stop. You know, we have massive digital footprints now, and to erase that is literally impossible. So really, again, I really feel like it comes back to, okay, given this knowledge, given that we know that we're being influenced to go online more and more and more, and that we know that they have all this information about us and they know all of these things, and ultimately we're not going to stop going online, what can we do as individuals to be more resilient and to not fall for this so easily? And I think that what Nana was saying about the importance of community really landed for me. I think our worlds have become so digital, so online, and it's easy just to make that become habit and to take it as the easy option, because it is the easier option. It is easier to scroll on your phone often than actually speak to somebody. And put yourself out there and go to the event or whatever it is. A lot of the time, yeah, it's just the easier option to hang out on the sofa and watch a TV show and scroll on your phone. And like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. As always, it's a balance of these things. I just think we've become so kind of too far the other way these days that you can't really go anywhere without seeing somebody on their phones living in the digital space. So we just need to be aware and do our best to really focus on having more human experiences. I think that is the real summary. So when I listened to this, like I mentioned at the start, went out to a community dance. I was kind of feeling a bit lazy. I was just thinking I could just stay at home and watch Netflix. But actually, I was so glad I went to that. It was really fun. And I just think that it's an important thing to be aware of. Obviously, you're not always going to want to go to a social event, but the more that we choose the other way, the less human we become. And I think once upon a time, it would have been so normal to be with your community all day, every day. And we're just losing that as time goes on. So big stuff, but I think important to remember. And maybe the message to you this time is to put down the phone, speak to somebody in person, go and touch some grass, and yeah, just enjoy this human experience rather than the digital version of it.